Imagine a world where once a year, the strict social order of medieval Europe flipped completely on its head. A day when servants became kings, nobles had to laugh at their own expense, and chaos was not just allowed, it was celebrated. Welcome to the Festival of Fools, a festival so wild, weird, and downright bizarre that nobles and peasants alike lost their minds for days on end. This was no ordinary party. It was a brief revolution chilling behind the stone walls of castles and churches, where tradition, authority, and hierarchy were mocked and upended through madcap parades, cross-dressing, drunken revelries, and irreverent rituals. People from the lowest serfs to the highest clergy played their part in this carnival of controlled chaos. In today's video, you'll discover how this strange festival allowed medieval society a rare glimpse of freedom, poking fun at power while releasing pent-up tensions. From the crowning of the Lord of Misrule to the hilarious Feast of the Ass, this custom's history is packed with surprises, socio-political satire, and outrageous fun. Before we dive into this medieval roller coaster of madness, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to never miss a moment of our dark, strange, and fascinating medieval stories. Ready to unleash the madness? Let's jump right in. The Festival of Fools was no ordinary medieval celebration. It was a spectacular eruption of chaos, laughter, and role reversal that shook the very foundations of medieval society for a brief but unforgettable time. To truly understand its origins, we need to journey back centuries far beyond the Middle Ages to the mysterious roots embedded deep in ancient pagan customs and the ever-adapting Christian calendar. Long before the rise of medieval kingdoms, ancient pagan communities worshipped the cycles of nature. The turning of the seasons, especially the winter solstice, marked a time when the world seemed to tilt on its axis, darkness receded, and the promise of light and renewal returned. These solstice celebrations were wild affairs, often involving feasts, costumes, and ritualistic reversals of the normal order, when the usual rules were suspended to honor this cosmic dance of death and rebirth. As Christianity spread across Europe, the Church encountered these ingrained pagan traditions. Rather than attempting to eradicate them outright, Church leaders cleverly adapted and refashioned these festivities to fit within the Christian framework. The result was a sanctioned Festival of Fools, merging older celebrations with the religious calendar around Christmas and the New Year season. At its heart, the festival was a profound and ritualized inversion of the medieval social order. The Middle Ages were dominated by an unyielding hierarchy. Kings ruled over nobles, nobles over knights, knights over peasants, and clergymen often stood above them all. Society demanded obedience and respect, with clear boundaries that maintained political, economic, and religious control. But once a year, during the Festival of Fools, these rigid hierarchies snapped like brittle twigs. The lower classes, peasants, servants, guild members, and the so-called fools or jesters were granted extraordinary powers. They mocked their masters, parodied the church, and reveled in a freedom usually denied to them. In some places, a Lord of Misrule or King of Fools was elected, a figure who commanded the festivities and gave absurd orders that all had to obey. The rulers became the ruled, the serious turned silly, and all for the sake of a communal release. This dramatic social inversion served an essential function. Medieval society was harsh, unforgiving, and prone to tensions arising from inequality and repression. The festival acted as a safety valve, channeling potential unrest into ritualized humor and chaos that ultimately reinforced the existing order by allowing its temporary subversion. The Church's role in this was complex. On one hand, the clergy promoted the festival as a tacit acknowledgement of human fallibility and a means of celebrating humility and forgiveness through laughter. On the other hand, they sought to rein in the more scandalous or blasphemous excesses that inevitably arose. Robust attempts were made to balance the festivities' irreverence with doctrine, often forcing the festivities to stay within rigidly defined timeframes and pleasantries. Yet, the festival's irreverence was not merely tolerated, it was essential to its spirit. Participants parodied sacred rites, replaced prayers with nonsense chants, and even changed solemn amens to uproarious exclamations like "Hi-ho." Cross-dressing was common, as men dressed as women and vice versa. and the usual face of authority was distorted by jesters wearing fool's caps and bells. Despite the church's sometimes uneasy supervision, the Festival of Fools blossomed from tiny village revels into widespread European celebrations across churches, towns, and courts. Processions wound through streets decorated with colorful banners and bizarre symbols. Revelers engaged in raucous singing, drinking, dancing, and theatrical farce. More than light-hearted fun, these revelries echoed deeper truths about human nature and society, the need for release, the recognition of universal folly, and the power of humor in binding communities together. Behind the laughter lay a subtle critique of power and an acute awareness of the fragility of social hierarchies. This celebration of inversion wasn't just a medieval sideshow, it provided a rare space where the disenfranchised could symbolically claim power, reminding everyone, ruler and peasant alike, of the shared vulnerabilities beneath titles and status. So, the Festival of Fools stood as both a mirror and an outlet, reflecting society's contradictions and offering temporary relief from them. Its legacy offers us insight into how medieval humans navigated the tensions between control and chaos, reverence and ridicule, order and anarchy. At the heart of the Festival of Fools stood one of its most iconic and symbolic figures, the Lord of Misrule. This was no ordinary partygoer or jester. He was the crowned sovereign of chaos during the festival, a commoner or servant who was given the unbelievable power to command nobles, clergy, and even kings for a day or sometimes several days. Imagine the rigid, hierarchical societies of medieval Europe, where social classes rarely mingled, let alone crossed boundaries. Now, picture a day when all these social walls came crashing down. Servants ordered their masters around, jesters made fun of bishops without fear, and peasants strutted about as temporary kings. The Lord of Misrule was the living embodiment of this inversion, a figure whose very role was to turn society upside down and inside out. Elected through often raucous or comedic means, the Lord of Misrule presided over a chaotic parade of role reversals and madcap events. He issued absurd decrees, turning everyday life into a topsy-turvy carnival. Nobles found themselves dancing in the streets at the command of their inferiors, while clergy participated in parodies of liturgical ceremonies. It wasn't just fun and games, it was a revolution dressed up in costumes and laughter. Cross-dressing was a prevalent theme. Men dressed as women, and women as men, confounding traditional gender roles and heightening the sense of disorder. This playful subversion challenged societal norms in ways that were both shocking and funny for medieval audiences. The festival provided a rare, socially sanctioned window for people to shed their usual identities and experiment with others. The religious rituals were also not safe from satire. Priests and deacons might replace sacred chants with silly or nonsensical verses. The traditional Amen often gave way to outrageous shouts like, "Hi-ho!" a shout that reverberates through history, immortalized in literature like Victor Hugo's The Hunchback of Notre-Dame. But beneath the laughter and absurdity lay a serious social function. The Festival of Fools gave voice, if only temporarily, to those normally voiceless within the medieval social order. It allowed grievances to be aired inside a controlled space that diffused potential unrest. Moreover, it reminded all participants, from nobles to peasants, that the social order, while rigid, was ultimately human and fragile. The Lord of Misrule's power was absolute but fleeting. His rulership ended as quickly as it began, and the social order was restored, in appearance at least, once the festival concluded. The contrast intensified the cathartic release provided during the festival, making the return to normalcy feel both inevitable and a relief. Regional differences shaped the exact nature of this role. In England, for example, the Lord of Misrule might lead a boisterous procession through town squares, while in France, the feast might include elaborate spectacles, theatrical plays, and banquets where social taboos were cheerfully ignored. Not all church officials were comfortable with these events. Some viewed the Lord of Misrule and his antics as blasphemous, threatening the very foundations of Christian order. Edicts were issued to limit or ban certain behaviors, but the festival's popularity and social value often outweighed these prohibitions. By the late Middle Ages, as the Renaissance dawned, The role of the Lord of Misrule began to fade, replaced by new forms of carnival and festivity. Yet the image of a fool or commoner wielding temporary power has endured in culture and literature ever since, a symbol of the complex relationship between order and chaos. In essence, the Lord of Misrule was both a trickster and a monarch, a glorious contradiction who embodied the Festival of Fools' spirit, challenging power structures through humor, mockery, and fleeting inversion. Among the many strange and uproarious customs celebrated during the Festival of Fools, none is perhaps as delightfully bizarre as the Feast of the Ass. This peculiar tradition carried deep symbolic meaning wrapped in layers of humor and social commentary, making it one of the festival's most memorable highlights. The donkey was the unsuspecting star of this feast, not just an ordinary beast of burden, but a potent emblem of folly, humility, and irreverence. On this peculiar day, the humble donkey was elevated to royal status. Crowns, robes, and all the trappings of nobility were fashioned for the beast, who was paraded through cathedral aisles, village streets, or grand halls, accompanied by torch-bearing revelers, singing, drumming, and laughter. This was no accidental jest. The Feast of the Ass was a pointed parody of the pomp and ceremony of the medieval church and aristocracy. Donkeys, stubborn and unpretentious, symbolized the ridiculousness of earthly power and the foolishness of pride, reminding everyone that all men, king or commoner, carry folly within. Furthermore, the donkey was sometimes linked to biblical stories, adding a layer of religious satire to the ordeal. These donkey parades turned sacred spaces upside down. Clergy members once allowed or at times begrudgingly participated in these processions, which were often accompanied by bawdy songs and raucous behavior that completely undercut the solemnity of religious rituals. In some parishes, the feast included scripted plays enacted by locals, full of slapstick humor and crude jokes, providing entertainment often unavailable in everyday medieval life. Feasts and carnivals like these were not just frivolous distractions, they were important social events. The Festival of Fools gave peasants, artisans, and common folk a chance to socialize, drink, and celebrate their communal identity with a freedom otherwise denied in the strict, authoritarian medieval regime. Large amounts of wine were consumed, encouraging festivity and loosening tongues and social tensions alike. Drinking immensely contributed to the festival's raucous and often unruly nature. Wild dancing, shouts, jokes, and practical jokes were commonplace. For many, the festival was an essential release, a momentary break from the bitter toil of their daily lives. Other traditions during the festival included role reversal performances, where landlords and peasants switched places, with peasants playfully bossing nobles around. A symbolic upheaval that was, however, well understood to be temporary. The reordering of society, while outrageous and sometimes frightening, was framed as a communal game rather than revolutionary action. Cross-dressing and gender role-play also featured heavily. Men might dress as nuns, women as knights, all taking part in the irreverent theater that mocked the rigidity and hypocrisy of medieval gender norms and religious strictures. This fluidity of identity within the festival was shocking to some but embraced by many as a crucial part of the joyous chaos. Despite the wildness, the entire spectacle was highly ritualized and tended to follow traditional scripts passed down through generations. It was a blend of spontaneity and preparation, controlled mayhem within defined boundaries. As such, the Feast of the Ass and similar customs served as both a celebration of the absurd and a reaffirmation of community bonds. In essence, these popular traditions illuminated the medieval mind's complex relationship with authority, humor, and social order. While they could be irreverent and subversive, they were at their core expressions of shared humanity and communal solidarity. In modern times, echoes of the Feast of the Ass and Festival of Fools ripple through carnivals, parades, and cultural events worldwide, reminding us of the enduring human need to laugh at ourselves and the institutions that govern us. The Festival of Fools, as wildly chaotic and entertaining as it was, never escaped the watchful eyes and wary hearts of the medieval church. Its role in this annual carnival was paradoxical. On one hand, the church co-opted the festival as a way to channel social criticism and folly into controlled ritual, but on the other, it struggled to contain the irreverence, excess, and mockery that could easily slip beyond tolerable bounds. From the earliest days of the festival, ecclesiastical authorities perceived the revelry with mixed feelings. Some clergy recognized the Festival of Fools as a means to allow people a temporary outlet for frustration and subversion, hoping it would prevent more dangerous rebellions against society's strict orders. They saw the humor and mockery as part of a divine lesson in humility, that fools and kings alike were children of God, subject to folly and grace. However, the more disorderly elements, public drunkenness, vulgar songs, cross-dressing, blasphemous parodies of sacred ceremonies, and the elevation of fools to positions commanding even clergy, often provoked stern reactions. Church synods and councils occasionally issued edicts aiming to regulate or even ban aspects of the festival. Bishops warned against sinful excesses, sought to shorten the festivities, or demanded clergy refrain from participation. In many regions, the Church attempted a delicate balancing act. It tolerated certain irreverences if confined within specific days or times, and if the rituals maintained a veneer of Christian symbolism and did not undermine ecclesiastical authority too directly. In some places, priests led or participated in parody masses, known as fools' masses, which mocked the solemnity of the normal liturgy but were begrudgingly accepted as part of tradition. Nevertheless, tension between celebration and control was constant. The Church feared that these celebrations could incite real rebellion, undermine moral discipline, or embolden heresy. The feast's popularity among common folk and its role in temporarily flipping social hierarchies challenged the rigid medieval order that both church and nobility depended upon. As the Middle Ages waned and the Renaissance blossomed, increasing religious reform movements, most notably the Protestant Reformation, viewed such festivals with disdain, branding many of their practices as superstitious or immoral. This shifting religious climate hastened the festival's decline. Moreover, social and political changes made the festival less relevant. The centralization of state power, changes in class relations, and the rise of new festive forms meant that the jovial chaos of the Festival of Fools gradually faded. New secular carnivals, masked balls, and court entertainments grew in popularity, absorbing and reinterpreting some of its spirit. By the 17th century, many traditional elements of the Festival of Fools had disappeared or were transformed beyond recognition. Yet despite these changes, the essence of festive inversion and social satire lived on in later cultural expressions. While no longer a widespread medieval phenomenon, the Festival of Fools' legacy infused European culture with a celebration of human folly, humor in hierarchy, and the enduring appeal of social release. In studying the Church's uneasy relationship with the festival, we glimpse a medieval society continually negotiating between control and chaos, order and laughter, a dance as complex and human as the festival itself. Though the medieval Festival of Fools gradually vanished from Europe's annual calendar by the early modern period, its spirit has echoed through centuries, deeply influencing culture, art, and ongoing traditions of festive rebellion. Understanding this legacy illuminates not only the medieval world, but also our contemporary celebrations that still embrace folly, inversion, and communal laughter. At its core, the Festival of Fools embodied humanity's timeless need to balance order with chaos, to acknowledge that beneath society's formal rules lies an essential common humanity marked by imperfection and the capacity for humor. This festival wasn't merely a medieval indulgence in nonsense. It was a ritualized recognition of social tensions and the power dynamics that govern communities. The spirit of role reversal and parody survived in many subsequent European traditions, from Venice's carnival and its elaborate masked balls to the wild Mardi Gras festivities of New Orleans. These celebrations owe much to the medieval foundations of temporarily overturning social norms, dressing in disguise, and releasing social pressures through joy and excess. In literature and art, the Festival of Fools found immortal expression through iconic works. Victor Hugo's The Hunchback of Notre-Dame famously depicts the festival with its vivid characters and chaotic energy, bringing medieval Paris's Carnival of Fools into the popular imagination. Disney's animated adaptation introduced a modern audience to this world, blending historical charm with accessible storytelling. Beyond entertainment, the festival's legacy continues as a potent symbol of grassroots resistance and human resilience. In societies facing rigid hierarchies or oppression, forms of fooling or satire remain crucial methods of social critique. Political cartoons, street theatre, and protest parodies channel the medieval festival's model, reminding rulers that power is never absolute and that humor can wield transformative energy. The Festival of Fools also highlights a paradox at the heart of human communities. The urge for control and the need for freedom can coexist and conflict, often sparking creativity and renewal. Medieval people's embrace of absurdity and laughter as coping mechanisms resonates today, especially in moments of social tension. Modern festivals, theatre, and celebrations that allow role reversals, such as Halloween and carnivals, continue this tradition of temporarily suspending social rules. The lessons of the Festival of Fools remind us that laughter can be revolutionary and that controlled chaos may keep societies functioning by giving space for expression and human folly. For our channel Medieval Crazy Story, sharing the Festival of Fools offers both entertainment and insight. It reveals medieval humanity not as grim and austere, but as full of contradictions, serious yet playful, hierarchical yet subversive, oppressed yet delighting in freedom, if only for a day. So next time you see a costume party, a carnival parade, or a cheeky satire poking fun at authority, remember, you are witnessing echoes of the Festival of Fools, a medieval spectacle of madness and mirth that shaped cultural expressions for centuries. This medieval carnival reminds us that beneath all the order, the stone walls and the iron rules, medieval society pulsed with a vibrant energy, laughter, and a love of life's absurdities. So next time you think about the Middle Ages, don't imagine only stone castles, knights, and solemn kings. Remember the Festival of Fools, a spectacular carnival where social order was turned upside down, fools became kings, and laughter ruled the day. It was more than just fun and games, it was a vital release valve for a rigid society, a moment when the powerful were mocked and everyone could share in the joyous chaos. This festival reminds us that even in the darkest times, humans find ways to celebrate their shared humanity, poke fun at authority, and embrace the absurd. The echoes of the Festival of Fools still ripple through modern carnivals, literature, and culture, proving that laughter, satire, and controlled rebellion are timeless and universal. If you enjoyed this peek into medieval madness, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another strange and dark story from Medieval Crazy Story. Share your thoughts or craziest medieval fact in the comments. We love hearing from you. Until next time, keep your curiosity alive, stay a little crazy, and keep it medieval.